Starting your own practice is hard for many chiropractors. It's riddled with both struggles and successes. But here at the Chiropractic Philanthropist, we make it easy by having chiropreneurs and entrepreneurs share their struggles and lessons learned in life and business so that you don't have to make the same mistakes. And now here's your host, Dr. Ed Osborne.
How amazing would it be if you could practice because you want to, not because you have to? Learn how to improve your cash flow and increase your passive income now. Go to moneyripples.com or find their podcast, The Chris Miles Money Show, to learn more. All right, TCP listeners, I have an incredible guest today, and that is actually Dr. Shawn Powers. Doc, how are you doing today?
I'm awesome. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody.
That's right. It's Valentine's Day. I keep forgetting.
Yes.
Yeah.
You better remember, Karen will be upset if you don't, right?
Well, I feel like we've been on this journey to get this interview done for several months. So I'm super excited to get this finally done and on the books because I know you're going to bring so much value as well.
Thank you.
Why don't we start with this? Why don't you share a little bit about yourself? Tell us about who you are in the profession today.
Okay, so I have been in the profession for decades, and I will tell you I love it more today than I did yesterday. It just gets better and better. Do you want to know my little journey about how I became a chiropractor, or more about what I do in chiropractic now?
Well, why don't you share a little bit about your journey, how you became a chiropractor, and then I'd love to know a little bit about how you're helping chiropractors as well.
Okay, all right. It's part of my journey for sure. So, when I was very young, my father died. And so that was, I was not even 3 yet. So that was my defining and compelling reason for, as I grew up, my whole goal was, how do I prevent dead dads, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm growing up and I'm looking at professions, and I get exposed to being a nurse, and I become a nurse in ICU. Well, I worked a double shift. I'm only a nurse for about 90 days. I do a double shift and I saw 12 people die. Boom. In 16 hours. Like, I'm only 20, right? One after another. So I'm like, you know what? This is not congruent with my mission. No more dead dads, right? Mm-hmm. And then it was no more dead brothers, sisters. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I had been introduced to chiropractic while I was going to university for nursing. And so it was part of my lifestyle. I was going to get checked and adjusted almost every week. And in that moment, I just was like, I can't do this. This is not what I want to do for my life. So I went to chiropractic school. Mm. Then I graduated, and I'm sure I'm like most all of the listeners. I thought, I'm going to put up my sign, open my door, and people are going to be lined up coming in. Mm. But they weren't. So I had to pay my bills. I went back to nursing part-time and chiropractic part-time. And finally, somebody I ran into, they're like, are you kidding me? Why are you doing that? And they said, come to the seminar with me. I went to the seminar. I learned a lot of things that I didn't know how to do, primarily marketing, education, communication. And within minutes, of being in that event, I knew there was hope. And so I hired the people right in that very moment. And then the rest is history. So my practice blew up. I grew, I flourished. I've always hired coaches. I've always gone to seminars. And then one day I hired Jim Zigafus. And if any of you are listening and you don't know that name, you want to listen to his stuff because it's powerful. And he came in, I paid him $2,500 to come into my office to do an in-office consult. And he listened, he watched, he looked at my numbers, and he said, hey girl, you don't need me. You don't need me. I need you. And I'm like, I paid you $2,500 for that, right? And this is way back when. It was a huge investment, right? Right. Probably worth $10,000 now, right? And he said, you've got it going on. You've got an amazing practice. I want you to come and start speaking at Parker. So that's why I do what I do now. He saw something in me. He knew I knew and it was evidence of success. So I started speaking on Parker program, then people started asking me to coach them, and I coach today because I've been on that roller coaster. I've had the hard times, the good times, I figured it out. And so today I coach chiropractors and simple strategies, powerful solutions so that they can grow to whatever level they want, right? Because we all have different desires, and in a way that they can impact their humanity and their community so that they're wildly successful because of the difference that they make. So that's my story.
Beautiful. I love it. I know you coach so many docs and you've helped so many doctors, but this might be a tough question then to kind of encapsulate in one answer. But what from that, all of these discussions, when you first meet doctors that are coming into your coaching space, what is the number one block that they have that you find? Like I know there's so many, but what's the number one that you find?
I don't know that it's necessarily a block as much as most people who come to me, they have an awareness that there's a gap between where they want to be and where they are. And sometimes it's fulfillment and satisfaction in practice. Sometimes it's financial. Sometimes it's, the practice itself. But I think the number one block is that people really don't have a system, and they try to make things too complicated, and they lose hope, right? Or they get into a state of overwhelm or frustration, and they start just swimming in this pool of unlimiting beliefs and doubts and fears. And so I would say that, the variety of things that I see are, sometimes it's practice related, sometimes it's personal, right? And that's the biggest thing is I think that they don't have strategies and systems that are effective. They keep throwing stuff at the wall, but not really being aware whether it works or not, or it doesn't work and they keep doing it, right? They keep repeating the same problems.
Yeah. It's interesting too, because that's what a really good coach or mentor does is they can see, I'll use your word, like the gaps, right? They can see really what we can't see. Right. I mean, I have a coach clearly, and I mean, it's invaluable. So, I think anyone who has ever listened to our podcast here knows that I'm a big proponent of coaching and of mentorship. I don't think that you can get to where you really truly want to be without someone who's going to help guide you there too.
Right. Yeah. I grew up in the city of Chicago, so I grew up in the day of Michael Jordan, Walter Payton. Yeah. Even if we look at, the greats in any sport, they always have coaches, and they usually have multiple coaches, right? So if you're out there listening, I'm just going to say this: you don't have to go it alone. And if you do go it alone, it's always harder, takes longer, and it's more costly, right?
Costs more.
So many, like financially, spiritually, relationship wise, right? So that's, I think, why we always resonate, because we know that answer, right? That don't do it for yourself.
Well, even in this online digital space that I'm in, now, right? I tried to figure out, and I did, it took a lot longer, and I spent a lot of money and it failed a lot of times too, until I got to the point where I'm like, I'm going to take on a mentor. And as soon as I put myself in a mentorship and around other people who were like-minded, but also some that were definitely at a higher level of success than me, that's when I saw my business just hockey stick. It really is about who you surround yourself with, isn't it?
Yeah. And if you are the richest person in the room, the smartest person in the room, the most successful person in the room, you are in the wrong room. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because we want to be with people who support us and cheer us on, right? Our families, our friends, but we also want people who stretch us, right? And see a better future than maybe sometimes we can see for ourselves, right? So that stretch, that challenge, and that, I got your back kind of thing.
Absolutely. One of the things we love too is we love affirmations. We love quotes. Do you have any positive words you'd like to drop on docs today?
Yeah, I think here's what I really want people to realize. Whatever your product, service, or idea is, realize that it has the power to transform people's lives, right? So whatever you're doing out there, you are unique and special, and you have the power to transform people's lives. And now is the time to do it, right? So right here, right now, it is your time.
I love that. And I love how you use the word power in there. So you bring your branding into your message. I love it because but it is so true. I mean, do you find that with a lot of doctors that they feel disempowered, that they feel that they're not making this is what I find often, and they're not making the impact that they feel that they, became a doctor to become.
Right. Yeah. And I think, like, you have to look at everything as a process, or as you would say in Canada, a process, right? So everything you're on a journey, right? But make sure the next step is clear, or make sure the next step is effective, right? So sometimes we do advance and retreat, but so many times what I think people focus on the future, and it seems so far away that they get disheartened, they get disempowered. But if you look behind you and you say, oh, look at what I accomplished this year or last week, or even this morning, you and I have been up probably since 5 this morning, right? We've got like more done today by noon than most people around the world, right? So if you look behind you and you say, look, I am today where I wasn't a year ago or a week ago. So I'm one step farther. And so you keep saying, what's my next step, right? To get to that ultimate. And then that ultimate is going to shift. It's going to change. So it's really not about the goal, the dream. It's about your journey and your process and who you become as you're advancing, right? So like, otherwise, what's it worth, right? Is it just a number, a bank account, a car, a plane? What's that really worth? It's more about who you become, your experiences, your impact, right? While you're getting to that gap, closing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how you say this too. It's about the process, but also it's about progress. And so many people just, because progress can be so incremental, unless you give them an ability to kind of reflect and see, oh, wait, actually, here's where you were 90 days ago. Here's where you are now, after we've been working together, they can actually have a real perspective on the change as to what's happened. That's again, where good coaching comes in too, isn't it?
And I think, Ed, like what you're just saying is like, you have to be careful about how you analyze and what you analyze, right? So I'm a big believer, and you need to know your numbers, not because you are your numbers, but your numbers are a reflection of your performance, of your focus. And so your numbers will help you figure out what you need to focus more on, what you need to tweak or refine, what you need to implement, or what you need to stop doing. Right? So sometimes practice growth might not be in the numbers of people you serve, but it's maybe you're a little bit more confident, or you're a little bit more courageous, or you have a better ability to communicate and articulate. And so as you increase that piece of growth, then the numbers start to grow, right? So really you have to be careful about what you're defining as growth.
Yeah, I love it too. But I like the perspective of also like the measurement, like being able to measure growth. And it doesn't always have to be tangible down to dollars and cents, but that's one of the markers, right?
Right. I mean, like, think about it. If you're a chiropractor, like you speak for or teach other wellness people, right? Or other people in the space of healthcare, or do you only focus? So I'll just use the chiropractic example. If I'm assessing somebody to determine the objective criteria to determine what to adjust, if to adjust, etc., what I'm really looking at is the whole picture of things, right? And I'm making my decision about what to correct. Right? And so when we're looking at our growth, we're assessing what we need to correct, right? And then we adapt, right? And so I think so often people watch numbers, but they don't correct. They don't adapt. They don't pivot. They look at the numbers, and when they're up, they're like doing the happy dance, right? When they're down, they're like, taking shots of tequila, or, doing whatever they need for comfort, right? Whining to their other friend who's suffering and not growing, right? So just remember those numbers, right? They are a just a piece of data that you can make good decisions from. But you must correct the subluxations in your numbers, right? In your actions. You must pivot and you must adapt constantly.
You know, one of the sayings we have with this podcast, and, you know, as part of the chiropractic philanthropist in general, is like, we are all more alike than we are different. Yeah. So that helps us in terms of like connecting with other doctors and in our profession, when we all know that we all struggle at some point. Is there ever a time that when you struggled? Yes or no?
Absolutely.
Never.
Even like, you know, I've had coaches mostly because I hate to struggle, right? But even with coaches, I have struggled because I didn't always listen, or, you know, it was just the nature of the experience. So yeah, I can remember one time I wanted to, there was a seminar in Hawaii, and I wanted to go to it so bad, and I registered for it. But I was doing a lot of service, but I wasn't getting paid. And so every day the stress of like, am I going to have any money in my bank account? Am I going to be able to do this, right? And that fear of, and then here's what I found out. I had a CA. Instead of doing, at that time I did a lot of insurance. Instead of doing billing, she was just shoving, and this is way before everything was automated, she was shoving bills into a drawer. So I was financially strapped. I was in a state of fear, and it was an awakening for me for two things. Number one, I'm a fabulous doctor, but I have to be a fabulous CEO of my company. Yes. I have to know what's going on in my company. I need feedback loops, and I need to monitor things. And the second thing was that I did not want to be beholden to anybody else for my income, i.e. an insurance company.
Right.
And so I learned I need to up level. I need to step up my game to be able to better communicate and educate and grow my practice in a way and make chiropractic so valuable that people wanted to make an investment in it regardless of insurance, that they would take money out of their own pockets to receive the service. So that was a really dark time and a scary time, but it was pivotal for my future success.
So that must be one of the things that you really help guide doctors through as well, is like, and maybe I'll back up. I had a conversation with one of my past accountants, and I remember talking to him, and I remember him saying, like, he had a lot of healthcare providers, not specifically chiropractors, but doctors. And I remember him saying that they were the worst when it comes to finances, like to business, right? And that always kind of resonated. And then he asked me for a check for like 80 grand for taxes. And I'm like, oh, I'm one of them. So, whereas just like, I don't want to think about that. I just want to think about growing my practice, right? And helping and serving. But is that something that you find, and it must be something that you empower doctors with, is really to become that CEO of their business and practice. But that must be something that you guide them in, right?
Right. And, I am a business strategist, because here's the bottom line. If you treat your practice like a hobby, right, or your heart is so big that you want to care for everybody on the planet, but you don't have sound business strategies, you will not be open next year or 5 years from now, right, to be able to deliver what is in your heart. Right. So you must have sound business strategies, and chiropractors tend to glaze over when you talk about it. And here's the bottom line. I think we've been tricked a lot. Your revenue is not your worth, right? It's your profit margin, right? So it doesn't matter how much you're taking in to your practice, it's how much you're taking home. And that's after you've paid your bills, your taxes, et cetera. So people kind of get tricked by that. They're like, oh, I'm making a lot of money. Yeah, but are you really netting, not grossing?
Right. I love it. And so why don't you tell us, like, help share like a little bit with doctors also, like what is it currently that you're doing to help doctors? And is there a way that they could possibly even reach out and connect with you? And could you share with them?
I would love to. And thank you for asking, because, my mission is to eradicate poverty in chiropractic.
I love that.
Right? And to move the human race forward because they get chiropractic care, right? So I have just this encompassing love for people getting chiropractic care and for chiropractors being successful, right? So I do that through one-on-one coaching. I don't do, I don't have a lot of openings for one-on-one coaching, but I have a few. But mainly now I love to do it in a membership. Right. So I have a member group where you get interviews, you get webinars, you can ask me anything in a private Zoom. We do once a month. So, and I speak and I teach all over the world because listen, there are powerful systems and strategies that anybody can implement. But the challenge is most people don't stay accountable, right? So I have a coach just like you, right? I got to do my report, right? I got to let them know I'm doing my work that I said I was going to do, right? And yeah, so I just love to help people on coaching and membership. That's my two main focus. Or speaking, like you and I, well, I was at Parker last month. I'll be in Dallas next week and then Iowa, you know how it goes. So yeah. Any way I can help chiropractors, I'm telling you, you don't have to suffer. Doesn't have to be a struggle.
I love it too. I mean, and this is, so just, for the docs who are listening too, and, so they understand the membership versus like one-on-one coaching. Mm-hmm. My experience has been, cause I used to do, what was that back in like 2018? I like almost exclusively one-on-one. Mm-hmm. And then when we shifted our model to doing membership based, the results that doctors were getting inside of the program were incredible. I find I'm going to use your word, the power of the group is what, so when you see other people being successful, becoming more successful, their wins, their struggles, all of those different things, it helps pull the other people, like pull you along through the process. And I always felt even in one-on-one, there was a little feeling of isolation sometimes for those doctors. So I love what you're doing here. And so how can they connect with you? Do you have a website that we can drop for them?
You can go to drshawnpowers.com, ShawnPowers, and DR instead of the full name. So DRSHAWN Powers, POWERS.com. Or like if, somebody just wants to get something and have a feel for what I do, whenever I do a podcast or a seminar, I always just tell you can also go to this website, PowerUpGifts with an S, GIFTS.com. And I'll just send you some free quotes. I'll send you some free videos, some power questions that might help you just, get out of whatever's inhibiting you right now to your greatness. Beautiful. So if membership or coaching isn't right for you and you just want some free stuff, maybe I got it for you.
That's awesome. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually take you now. We're going to put you in our TCP Time Machine. Are you ready?
I love it.
All right, here we go.
Okay, get a special hat.
Exactly. The flex capacitor. We got to switch it on. All right. So we're going to put you in the TCP Time Machine. Now we're going to send you back to a younger version of yourself. Now this is right after you came out of chiropractic college. So you've just graduated, but you have all the life experience and all the knowledge that you have today. Now you meet that younger self. What would you say to that younger self?
The first thing I'd probably say is don't be stupid and go it alone. Yeah. Right? Because I went it alone for a long period of time and it was very costly, emotionally, financially. I actually had to go back to nursing part-time because I didn't get a mentor, a coach. So I would say, first of all, don't go it alone. And second, I would say to myself is everything's going to be okay, right? Every experience you have, good and bad, is making you become who you are, and it's going to be worth it.
I love it. I love it. I mean, and isn't that so true? Is like everything, I don't want to say like cliche of everything happens for a reason, but everything that's happening to you at that specific time is happening for you.
Mm-hmm. You know what? It's a very funny thing because I've always kind of been a quote cliche, like a little statement like that. But almost 4.5 years ago, my 30-year-old niece died in the middle of the night. She had a seizure and she had sudden epileptic death. No history of epilepsy. And all those things, everything happens for a reason. You'll get through this. This too shall pass. That kind of stuff just kind of went out the window. It just didn't work anymore. But as we navigated that over the last couple of years, and what I have learned is that things that happen to you, there are ways to find gifts in them or strength, or that your struggles might impact somebody else. So I'm very careful nowadays about throwing words like that out without really knowing somebody's story or history, because it might be, they might have that cloak of a loss of a child or some illness, that if anything I could do to just lift that cloak that's smothering them up a little bit, it's usually not in just a simple quote.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, and it's like, yeah, I mean, I've had this too, where it's like, inside of our, like, it's, how do I explain it? It's almost like, you need to be like, people need to be in that place and experience that. Maybe not necessarily again for a reason, but they need, like, there's something there for them.
Right. Yeah. And I think owning that belief that, do things happen for a reason? When you lose a child, it's hard to say that there's a reason behind that. But from some trial or tribulation, can you find a reason to be somebody because of it, right? Or to do something because of it, right? So, yeah, I think that that's the whole thing, is whatever your foundational beliefs are, you have to look at those. Do they elevate you? Do they empower you? Do they strengthen you? Or do they make you feel disempowered, hopeless, frustrated, or disappointed? So that belief, like, I do a lot of belief work with my clients. Because, right, it transforms us. When we transform our beliefs, just like our practice members, right? If we transform what they believe about their potential, about their brain, about the nervous system, it transforms their lives.
I love it. So, Doc, if we said there was something like right now that you think is an incredible, like, resource that everyone listening right now should go out and get. So it could be either a book you're reading, could be an app you're using, could be something you're listening to, or someone you're following. What would that resource be?
I would say the land of podcasts are really a phenomenal resource. And I could throw out names, but I think it's really, like, obviously the Chiropractic Philanthropist has been on my playlist since I found out about you, right? It's beautiful. I love Ed Milet. He's this big muscle, personal jet kind of guy. And if you look at his picture, you might go, ooh, but he has everybody from, like, Daryl Strawberry, old, boxers, fighters, to women in the online space, right? So he's a person who I think he just wants, his whole thing is called Max Out. And I'm Power Up, right? So he's always talking and listening, talking to people from a plethora of backgrounds. And I love that variety, right? The perspective. And so I would say find podcasts that resonate for you. So when I'm working out, there's a podcast, right? I'm blow drying my hair, there's a podcast in my ears. So, and books, one of my favorite fundamental books of all time was Man's Search for Meaning. And if you've never heard of Viktor Frankl, he has taught us that no matter what happens to us, he was in a prisoner of war camp. He actually hid under dead bodies to get out. So the resourcefulness of who you are as a human being, that search for your meaning and your purpose, and that you can figure anything out, but just believe that to be true. So that's a fundamental foundational book for me that I was introduced in nursing school in my psychiatry class. So I love that.
I read that book in college before I ever went to chiropractic college. But it's, it was that was probably one of the most incredible books I've ever read. So docs, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to have you head over to thechiropracticphilanthropist.com. We're going to have a web page dedicated to our discussion with Dr. Shawn Powers today as well. We're going to have all the links and resources that she's provided. And if you're actually listening on your mobile, you can go ahead and actually open up the show notes and you'll find all the links and resources, and you can connect with Dr. Shawn right there from your mobile. Doc, I got to thank you for bringing it on the podcast today. Just amazing. And thank you for the value.
I just want to say thank you, Ed, for all you've done all these years for us in chiropractic and the amount of resources you have given us through your dedication. So thanks for having me, and thanks for all you do. I love you for it.
Thank you.
So you've heard the struggles, you've heard the successes, and this episode is done. But there's still so much more to come and so much more to learn. Head on over to the chiropracticphilanthropist.com and sign up for our newsletter, where you'll receive free practice building tips and strategies, including how to market your practice with your very own podcast and so much more. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Chiropractic Philanthropist.